Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's here to talk about Group E.
There we are.
His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. So you wouldn't say A, but you would say boot. I like it. I like it. It's the diplomatic choice.
I learned it from South Park the movie.
Perfect.
That's all I know about Canada.
I do appreciate that you're fully dressed as a Canadian Mountie in preparation for today's show. That's kind of you. You came in spirit.
It was an expensive choice.
You're like, I'm not going to do any research. This isn't even the team I'm previewing, but I still want to spend a bunch of money and come in costume.
I'll tell you what, the horse did not want to go in the elevator.
Neither does my dog. My dog, by the way, you owe it to yourself to take a dog in an elevator because it really does react like magic. Like, this is not what the doors were when they closed before.
Did they get scared?
No, she got a little scared, my dog Piper.
So it's the thing of like the door closes and it's like magic, you open it and it's a different door.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, it's a portal.
She was definitely uncertain about that one.
That's good. Now your dog believes in magic.
She was also uncertain about your side of the office, by the way.
She was, right?
Yes.
It's where the magic happens.
Yes.
Are you ready to talk Group E?
I suppose
instead of dogs and various animals in elevators. It's Canada, it's Cameroon, it's New Zealand, it's the Netherlands. It's, as far as I understand it, 4 very exciting teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so do you want to get straight to it?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's get Taylor to tell us all about Canada.
I shall. The first thing I shall tell you is that they are another team like the United States that does not have a nickname.
Okay.
But I've got one for them. It's the weird censuses.
The weird censuses?
Yeah, that is correct, yes.
What's that second word?
Census. Like,
okay.
when you take a census?
Yeah,
they're the weird censuses.
I'm convinced that the plural of census is not censuses.
Sensei?
It might be.
Sensees.
We'll go with it. All right. So why are they the weird censuses?
Well, first of all, because if you look at Canada's population map, it's just strange. It's just a strange layout of population.
It's a lot of concentration in cities and then spread throughout ice.
There it is. Yeah. Yes, exactly, throughout ice. But
or
also
throughout like rural.
I know
landscapes.
It's okay. But also because for this team, their ages are slightly strange because you've basically got 14 of the 23 players are 18 to 25, and then 5 are 30 or older. So basically only 4 players are between 26 and 29, which is indicative of veteran squad with lots of young players coming through, but young players who have played so many times for the national team that they too are veteran status as well.
Yes. Because veteran status is not necessarily about age, right? It's about number of caps.
Yes, exactly. But unlike that census, their form is pretty consistent. They are undefeated this year, 5 wins, 4 draws, 0 losses.
Okay, did not know that.
Wins over Norway, Scotland, England, and Nigeria, all of whom will be World Cup bound, so that's pretty decent. Due in part to their manager, Kenneth Heiner Muller, who was appointed in December of 2018. And I'm going to say due a lot to their shifting formations and tactics, which are very interesting, but also were the bane of my existence for about 3 hours.
It makes it hard to research.
It really does, because usually what I'll do is, I'll go through, look at the formations and kind of get the approximation. This time they had 4 different formations that they sort of rotated.
I would argue that formations don't necessarily matter that much. No. I think it's tactics and style that matter more.
Yes, I would agree with that, with maybe the outlier of it matters when it comes to back 3, back 4. And they do both of those things.
That's the major difference, right?
Yes. And
Canada plays a back 3 sometimes? Did not know that.
Basically, here's the way it works, is from what I understand, from what I saw and kind of the data that I combined, it get a lot of gestures just there. I'm not sure why.
You did your tactical censuses.
I did, exactly. Thank you for using the proper terms. Basically, they play a 4-4-2 if they're playing against a 4-4-2. They play a 4-2-3-1 if they're playing against a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3.
They're matchy-matchy.
And then they play a back 3 if they're playing against a back 3.
Okay.
So it seems as though they try to match what their opponent is putting out.
Yeah.
And it seems like that works really well because it's still Canada sort of matching roughly the personnel, but then backing themselves to have the talent and the ability and the kind of possession and goal-scoring rates to best their opponents in these similar setups. Yeah.
Okay, actually, that leads me to a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
How good are Canada?
Very.
Should I think of them as US, France, Germany, like contenders to win the World Cup? Or are they on that slightly below next tier where you would put maybe Australia and teams like that?
So
are they in between? Are they like 1.5 tier?
I heard Julie Foudy. Yes, that is the answer.
They're on the mezzanine.
Yes, for me at least. Julie Foudy was talking about this. I think she said this is the first time in her memory in her lifetime that like there were more teams than you can count on one hand who could potentially win the Women's World Cup.
That's why it's the most exciting Women's World Cup of all time.
Yeah.
I'm going to say.
And she had Canada in there. She also had Sweden in there. I'm going to be talking Sweden on the next episode.
Group F.
I don't know if I would necessarily agree with her, but I would put them not in like a second tier, but like just behind that top tier.
Yeah,
that's
so,
where they are.
So tier 1.5 on the mezzanine.
So yes, exactly. And then I think you combine that with how much hype the Netherlands have been getting. I know you're going to be talking about them.
I sure am. For a long time, I'm going to warn you.
They are the Women's World Cup equivalent of Belgium to the Men's World Cup, I feel like, where it's like they're the dark horse who aren't the dark horse because everyone is talking about the Netherlands.
That would be true if Belgium had won Euro 2016.
Well, there's that too. Yeah. Good call. Yes, so it feels like they're like sort of at like that next level where they will cause problems. I expect them to go deep in this tournament, but I don't know if I would put them in my like bracket of teams that I expect to win because that's pretty much the USA and France.
All right, and apologies for sidetracking
the
preview. I just genuinely really had that question burning in my mind. Like,
that's
how
fair.
good is this team?
Yeah.
And it seems like they back themselves if they're matching formations and saying, all right, we'll go toe to toe with whatever you've got.
Exactly.
Bring it on.
Exactly. Well, it's that, but then it is also like the depth that they bring allows for that sort of shifting approach. And the gist of it is like because I'm not like instead of going like okay they're going to be in a 4-4-2 and it's going to be this and this.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a few names. Forward is always going to be Christine Sinclair. She does not necessarily play that for Portland. She's dropped into a more like supporting attacking midfielder role, like second strikers attacking midfield.
Okay.
For Canada, she is the goal scorer.
Yeah.
So she'll be in there. Nichelle Prince sometimes partners her, but if they go with a sole striker, Nichelle Prince is one of the wide attackers.
Are you saying Nichelle?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
With an N, yes. She'll be on the right-hand side, Janine Becky on the left. Janine Becky is not a player that I'm necessarily going to like spotlight, but I wanted to mention briefly because again, from what I could tell, she is the left winger when they have a left winger. When they play with a back three, she is the right wing back. So make of that what you will. She did that more than a few times. That's why I wanted to talk about her.
That's what I'm going to say.
Exactly. Yeah, and it is because I think in watching her, I kind of forgot that. Like I had that as a note, and then I watched her, and I was like, man, she's really good attacking, and she's really good defensively. Now I understand why she does both.
And what's her name again?
Janine Becky. She's a 24-year-old attacker from Man City. Not yet. Becky's an attackee. 25 goals in 56 appearances. What I just said sounds like it should be something for New Zealand. Yeah. We'll get to them later.
Does she have good hair? Is that who Beyonce was talking about in that song?
Yes. Janine with the good hair? Yes. Yes. I guess, she could be Becky. There you go. Janine Becky with the good hair. Yeah. That's how she did it. Yeah, perfectly. But she has very good finishing ability combined with like attacking pace and cleverness, but then also like the defensive work rate to get back, make those tackles, cut out passes. So I think that's why you're going to see her of do both of those things. In the midfield, you're going to have Desiree Scott, who will be the kind of holding midfielder.
I've heard of her.
Yes. And you're going to have Jessie Fleming, who is a player that I want to talk a bit more about for a moment, because she's one that I think when I told you that I picked Jessie Fleming, I think your response to that was, is she still 13? Because that's about when we first started hearing about
16, 17 at the 2015 World Cup when Canada hosted, right?
Yep. And she is still in college. She's at UCLA, I believe. 8 goals in 65 appearances for Canada. But I would argue that, not having watched a lot of Canada, so Canadians out there, I apologize, and please don't come at me with your syrup. Yeah. But I think she's...
Are we going to hear about Canada
probably,
comments? It's done with love, right? Neighbours to the north and all that.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people would enjoy Canada right now. Yes.
I'm jealous of the healthcare system.
Yes, there's that. Yes. I'm jealous of several of their policies as well. But yes, I'm going to talk about Jessie Fleming, though, instead of Canadian governmental practice. Jessie Fleming, I would say, is probably going to be more of a provider than a goal scorer. She can certainly score goals, but I think as her kind of goal-scoring record indicates, that's not really what her game is about for Canada. It's more about distribution, spreading the ball into space, kind of alleviating pressure. And I think a big thing that I really enjoyed in watching some of the clips of her is her kind of reaction time is so quick that it feels like she's really alert to everything that's happening.
Yeah.
So routinely, again, we use Y-Scout to watch kind of condensed clips of individual players.
We should be sponsored by Y-Scout.
We really should. And she was one of those players who, whenever you see like defensive action, interception or whatever, and they spotlight the player, routinely she's like 20 yards away from the ball and then somehow closes or like steps into the right space to be there as like a secondary defender to win the ball, to pick the ball back up. Yeah. And then she goes. And that's the other aspect is like the head on a swivel. She has the deft technical ability to, I saw a few different like just outside of the foot quick little nutmegs, and then rather than sort sort of like, haha, I've done a move. Her head is instantly up looking for passes.
Yeah, so the thing I really liked, I watched fewer highlights than you, but I like to look at your players. We both do this, right? So that we have something to talk about when we talk about the key players. The thing I really liked about Jessie Fleming is I saw her take quick, clever touches out of pressure to sort of get away. But a lot of players do that just to get away.
Yeah.
But she's already thinking about, as well as getting out of pressure, I've spotted that run, I've spotted that space. And then she'll like swivel and hit this like killer through ball that you didn't see coming.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And she does that against like stronger opposition, weaker opposition alike.
Yeah.
The thing that I saw her doing a lot against stronger opposition, especially the United States, is essentially being like an agent of chaos. Like even when the U.S. would get overloads, you'd see Jessie Fleming come in there and just like poke the ball away from Julie Ertz, or just make Julie Ertz think a little bit longer, or just think make Sam Ewis slow down a little bit. And just those little moments of her stepping in and causing problems, it causes problems, and it doesn't allow teams to play they want, and that's a big aspect of what she brings as well.
I mean, I obviously heard of her as the 16, 17-year-old who was going to the World Cup. She was kind of a little bit famous just for being so young at that 2015 World Cup.
Yeah.
It sounds like, I know she's still at UCLA, but it sounds like she's progressed as a player.
Yes.
Based on her national team performances, or the clips that I saw.
I would argue. I'm doing Top Drawer with Travis tomorrow, I believe. I can ask him about that then, see what he thinks of her. He did not focus on Jessie Fleming when we did our previews. He focused on Jordan Haitema, who will be like probably subbing on, or maybe a secondary striker if the two that I've already mentioned, Christine Sinclair and Nichelle Prince, cannot go.
Got it.
Speaking of which, let's talk about Christine Sinclair.
Is she one of your key players?
Yes.
She's got to be, right?
She is the keyest of key players. Yes. 35-year-old captain, as I said, more of an attacking midfielder for the Portland Thorns. For Canada, 181 goals, 282 appearances.
Excuse me, how many goals?
181, 282 appearances. I think her goal is to break 200 and 300 in those categories, respectively.
Has she said that?
I don't know if she said that, but I think many people have speculated on that. I think that would put her ahead of Abby Wambach as well. So that might also be like
I do think of her as the Canadian Abby Wambach.
I think you should.
Is that fair? Like playing style-wise, is that fair? Or is it reductive, just like star striker from 2011?
I understand why you would say that, and I probably would have said that until I watched a bit more of her, because
when you were less learned, you would have said it.
Well, no, it's just more so like you're not wrong in that she has a lot of those familiar qualities. She is. She's physically imposing. She's excellent in the air, and she's like very good on the ball. And
strong,
she kind of has, like the decision making as well. That she kind of knows. Take a touch, hit the ball. Doesn't need to be a lot of like razzle dazzle to it. Like if you do the kind of basic things right. But I also think there's a reason why she's become more of an attacking midfielder, and it's because of her vision and decision making. That it's, and I'm not trying to be critical necessarily of Abby Wambach, but that's not a thing that I think of her as. I think of her as that kind of target striker, good in the air, good to cause problems for defenses, but I don't necessarily think of her as kind of dropping in and controlling the ball with her feet and like distributing and moving the ball and kind of taking like little touches to just like pull in defenders and then lay it off to somebody else. Whereas that is something that Christine Sinclair is more than capable of.
Interesting. Okay.
So I found myself like, I think she's one. You said it before we started recording, but it absolutely is what I felt, which is like she's a player that I just kind of know about. She scores goals for Canada. She's very good. She's very good in the air. And I almost made that fatal mistake of like, and so that's basically what I'm going to say about her. And then watching more clips of her, you see the sort of little nuances of her game that make her the type of player who gets almost 300 appearances and scores almost 200 goals.
Well, bless you for doing your homework.
I try, my friend. A couple other names really quickly, and then I will stop. Getting really excited about Canada, although there are many reasons to be excited about Canada. I did just want to mention they're also pretty settled in terms of their defense. Alicia Chapman can play both left and right back, and then Ashley Lawrence will be the right back. And it is one of those Kelly O'Hara situations in which like Ashley Lawrence is the starting right back, but is also a left back backup for Alicia Chapman.
I'm glad they're making Gilles feel less alone.
Yes. It's very kind of them to do just that. So I think Canada are one of those teams, and it's also the case. I like watched them and did my research for them because we did the research for these next two groups kind of all at once, or over the course of like 2 days.
It's been a
basically.
whirlwind 24 hours, right?
Yes, and it's easy to like sort of...
By whirlwind, I mean headache from staring at a screen.
Yes, pretty much. Yes, with I think I filled up an entire legal pad. Again, like I cannot stress how much time and unnecessary effort I put into like figuring out, okay, how often does she play at left wing versus right wing versus left back versus... Okay, but sometimes she's not... It's too much. It's too much. What I will say is that Canada are a team that like because... we've talked about many, many good teams, and I kind of led off with my research with them. I was of the mind, like, yeah, they're good. Like, there you go. That's fine. They're fine. And, like, and then I moved on and then reading more about the teams that we're going to talk about later, but then also kind of making myself go back and look at them again. When you see them with fresh eyes and kind of don't just go with that, like, oh, they're Canada, they're good. You see a lot more to them and you realize why they should be in that maybe top tier category, but I still have them just underneath.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right.
There we are.
Is that it for Canada?
I think that's about it for Canada.
Do you have anything to say about the domestic league, or do all their players just play in the NWSL?
I don't know the answer to that. I believe most of their players play in the NWSL or abroad. I didn't really look into their domestic league at all.
No worries.
Again, spent way too much time with my various formations and results that they generate.
Well, if you want even more information, you could visit today's sponsor, fbref.com, stands for footballreference.com.
Yep.
We've definitely mentioned them before. If you haven't heard them yet, Sports Reference is the sort of broader company. They do all kinds of other sports, and they're just getting into soccer, and they are filling the database, right? They are filling it with information from the past, including a lot of women's soccer stats. As the World Cup goes, my understanding is the World Cup stats will be updated really quickly. So you'll be able to follow the World Cup stats on fbref.com as you go. Taylor, have you got any stats from the website that you want to share with us?
It's more a feature of the website that I appreciated. So I had read that Christine Sinclair was more of a midfielder for Portland, which surprised me.
I'm laughing because my stats about Sinclair as well.
Okay, great.
Because we both knew when this ad would be placed in the show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So then, that is in no way the reason why I put it here. So then basically what you can do is you can go look at their club appearances, and I went back and looked at last season, since I think she's only played 3 games for the Thorns this year. I'm assuming that relates to World Cup preparations. But once you go into there, you can look at the match report and you can see the formations of each team and kind of how they kind of lined up in that game, and then the stats that correspond. So I can go back and look and see, like, oh yeah, she was playing behind Caitlin Ford, I believe it was, and that's kind of like where she seems to be most comfortable, but that leads to more assists in that position than in other positions, so you can kind of break it down that way, which makes life easier for me.
So you can look at where she's scoring goals and where she's getting assists.
Exactly.
Got it. All right, so you looked at the website. I subscribe to the newsletter. You're welcome to do so as well, by the way, but I subscribe to the newsletter.
That's right.
I would encourage listeners to do so. It's in the nav bar when you go to fbref.com. The newsletter today, or actually over the weekend, because I think they worked through the weekend and kept doing Group E preview, there was a stat for Christine Sinclair.
Okay.
You ready? Christine Sinclair will be playing in her 5th World Cup this year, having scored at least 1 goal in each of the previous 4. So if she scores again, she'll have scored in 5 consecutive World Cups.
You mean when? Did you mean to say when just then?
I kind of did, yes. But I don't want to jinx it. Don't jinx it for Canada.
I don't think you saying that will jinx it for Canada, short of a horrific injury, which I'm now going to knock on. I think she'll be just fine in terms of goal scoring.
Here's another stat. You mentioned earlier, Jordan Hoitema. Where does she play? She's like a sub for...
she'll be a forward.
She'll be a forward. So she'll be a sub for Christine Sinclair, maybe, right? When Christine Sinclair scored her first ever World Cup goal, Jordan Hoitema was 2 years old.
That's absurd.
Probably not even old enough to comprehend watching Christine Sinclair score her first World Cup goal.
I would say definitely not. But then again, our former co-host Peyton was hesitant to come watch the Champions League final. He's a Liverpool fan because he was concerned that his, I believe, 2 and months, 2 years old and months, 2 and change, year old daughter might have a memory of watching the Champions League final. So he stayed and watched with her.
Oh, that's cute though, right?
It is.
It kind of worked out as well. We'll have to, I guess we'll ask her in a few years.
Yeah, exactly.
And when she says no, Peyton will be real mad.
Except she won't, because by then Peyton will have indoctrinated her with all of this stuff about what happened, and so she'll be able to tell us all about how, Virgil van Dijk was key. It's like, okay, you don't remember
She'll never walk alone, but not by choice.
Exactly.
Because Peyton will be there giving a Liverpool facts all the time. You can find some Liverpool stats on fbref.com.
You sure could.
Thank you to FBref for sponsoring today's show.
I agree. I would like to make one final comment about Canada, and then we shall move on. Canada, I think, are going to be one of the teams that I'm most excited. They are one of the teams that I'm most excited to watch because, as I mentioned, they're going to match their group stage opponents. I think that's probably how they'll approach it. But that means that they're also capable of a lot of improvisation. And so I think they'll be a team that, say, they're struggling at halftime and then they end up winning 1-0 or 2-0 or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll be a team that we'll be able to go back and look and say, okay, they were in a 4-2-3-1. They switched to a 4-4-2 at halftime. And then once they got that goal, they switched to a back 3. And that made them, you'll be able to see, I think, a lot of variation in what they're doing, which will make them a very exciting team overall.
Speaking of exciting teams, would you like to hear all about Cameroon?
Would I? The answer is yes.
So, Cameroon. They are nicknamed the Indomitable Lionesses. You could have seen that one coming.
I could have ended. Yes.
Everyone knows the Cameroon men's team nickname because it's so great. I almost don't want to mess with it because it's so good. But I'm going to call them the Hasslers.
Okay.
They're the Hasslers. And that's mostly about their tactical style, which we'll get to later.
All right.
I want to give you a bit of history first.
All right.
2015 was Cameroon's first Women's World Cup. And a lot of the time you say that and then it's like, and they lost all 3, but it was nice that they got there. Cameroon won 2 games in the group stage, got out of the group, got to the round of 16, lost 1-0 to China.
They beat Switzerland, I think, which
was
in
the group,
massive upset.
They did really, really well. So this is a team that already has a trip to a World Cup that went well. A lot of that team is back.
Okay.
You would have done this. I didn't do this. I didn't count the number of players on the roster, but basically most of the big name starters, they're all back from 2015 and 4 years older.
You calling me a nerd?
A little bit, but in a good way.
That's fair.
In a good way.
That's fair.
Yeah. So the thing is as well, that team in 2015 was young-ish. A lot of players in there like 20, 21, 22.
That's young.
So all those players are now like peak of their career, right? Like mid-20s or so, with a couple of exceptions.
Okay.
And that's maybe a bit of the problem with Cameroon. So I'll start with sort of a negative, is that a couple of the key players are 4 years older and they were already in their 30s, right? So the captain, Christine Manier, she is 35 years old. She's going to weigh number 2 when you see her. She'll be the centre-back. And I've seen a lot of talk, essentially, from, Cameroonian women's football team fans saying, I think she might have lost it a little bit.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so just lost a step of pace. And the footage I saw, she's a little bit standoffish in a way that you don't expect defenders to be. There was a game where, to qualify for the World Cup, it was like they got to the semi-final of the Women's Cup of Nations, right? They lost to Nigeria, because everyone loses to Nigeria. Remember from our preview, they dominate the Cup of Nations.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Then there was a third-place playoff against Mali. They go 2-0 up, but then they concede 2. And on both the goals...
Oh, yeah. You sent me the highlights of this one.
Yes, I did, yeah. So both the goals, they're not Manier's fault, right? She's not, she hasn't done anything wrong. But she's also just kind of passive in the play. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think there's that thing of what the player that used to be an indomitable centre-back is now maybe just sort of... She's still experienced, still wears the armband, still the leader, but is maybe just not as aggressive, not as involved. Okay.
Is that the case for... There's a striker that I was reading about.
Yes. I'm going to have to scroll down in my notes to find her name.
I'll do my best. Gail Nganamoit? Something like that? Nganamoit? Sure, why not? But she's.
Oh no, she's not older. She's just injured.
There it is. But I think she's one who sort of broke through in the last iteration of the tournament.
Yeah, scored a hat trick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then since then has had knee
injuries.
multiple injuries and is no longer in that form, but is in this squad, right? So I guess my question then is: do you feel like this is a case of maybe sticking with the ones that got you there last time because hopefully it happens again, or do you think maybe this is more so an insight into the sort of lack of player depth when it comes to the Cameroon national team?
I think a little bit of both because the team was kind of inactive for a couple of years here and there. So there's not a lot of time to experiment with new players.
That makes sense.
Right? So, and then the pool is only so deep. And so that's why it's this group of players. But in a way, that's not a bad thing because they're all experienced and they all know each other and they all keep playing. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so the interesting thing is that there's another defender. Her name is Arielle Awana. I think could have played for France. She plays for Dijon over in France. She's also a talented defender, so she maybe balances out the problem, which may be a problem, with Christine Manier. But they went and added an extra defender anyway, an American.
Yeah.
You know about this?
Yes,
so
I do.
This will give some Americans a rooting interest in Cameroon. Estelle Johnson, American dad, Malian mum, so no actual Cameroonian heritage.
Interesting.
Born in Cameroon.
Her
dad was in the Peace Corps, so he was around Africa a lot for many years, right? So, but Estelle Johnson claims that she saw Cameroon play 2015 World Cup and was kind of like, I like this team. I'd love to get involved, right? Never called up by the US Women's National Team. I think fairly, maybe it's a high standard, right? It's a very, very high standard to get called up to the US Women's National Team. They made contact with her a year or two ago, and the paperwork finally went through. She has 1 cap. She's played 1 game.
Oh, so she's just come in.
Just come in,
wow.
Estelle Johnson. And then the interesting thing to me is then, does Estelle Johnson displace Manier, the captain? Probably not, right? Because that's the leader of the team. That will cause all kinds of trouble. Does she displace the other centre-back who I mentioned, who is, sort of a talented player herself, Awana? How do they do this? Or do they get Estelle Johnson to go through all that paperwork and then she doesn't even play?
I'm going to guess she plays.
It's a conundrum, right?
I mean, sort of, but I'm going to guess she plays.
One thing I also suggest is maybe that Onguene goes to right back and they just shift her out there.
Yeah.
And then they all get to play. So that's a possibility.
Everybody's happy.
So I wanted to just, raise that so people could look at that. None of those are my key players, but I think it's interesting what's going to happen in Cameroon's defence.
All right.
I did watch some Estelle Johnson footage. She's played for Sky Blue this season. Loves a slide tackle, which is both positive in terms of it looks great every time you do it, but we also know it's a negative because it means usually you're slide tackling when you've got yourself into a desperate situation.
Or if you know that you're going to play for a national team that some would nickname the Hasslers, right? Then I think it makes sense. You want to slide tackle as much as you can to keep yourself in consideration.
I've also held off talking tactics. I wanted to talk Estelle Johnson first because someone asked Estelle Johnson, what's it like playing for this Cameroon team? And she gave a really great quote. She said, it's a lot of hard work. That's what she said about Cameroon's style of play. A lot of physicality and a lot of high-speed stuff. A lot of counter-attacks and athleticism.
All right.
Accurate. I watched them play. That's why they're called the Hasslers.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning, there was a change in coach. Alain Jumfa is the current coach. He took over in January 2019. I couldn't find out why Joseph Ndoku, the guy who got them, to the World Cup, was fired. But all I know is he's playing the same formation as Ndoku was at 4-3-3. And this team really worked as a counter-attacking, pressing counter-attacking team. He'd be crazy if he switched it up. So I'm going to assume that they're going to play the same style. I might be wrong, but I'm like 80% confident that they're going to stick with it. So here's why they're the Hasslers. They don't necessarily press high, right? They don't go chasing you out the field. They do the sort of, 10, 15 yards over the halfway line is our line of confrontation. But what they do then is squeeze. Like if the ball's on like Cameroon's right and the opponent has it, the left side of Cameroon will squeeze over. So suddenly you've got a pride, a pride of players, and they're all ready to really work hard.
Pride of Hasslers.
Just a pride of Hasslers to really work hard and just win that ball back. All right? So it's really effective because eventually the ball pops loose. And then when it does...
That's my question.
They really do have pace on the counter with two really impressive wingers.
All right.
So they're sort of my...
Those be your key players?
They're going to be one of my joint key players because I don't want it to be all about the wingers. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, so your key players on the wing.
If there's a loophole out there, Daryl Grove will find it.
Yeah,
when it comes to our previews, at least.
I'm writing it.
You follow the rules on everything else, but when it comes to previews, there's a little bit of a. I've got 6 predictions. I know we said we'd each do one.
I've ridden my bike through some stop signs. Okay, so
I don't believe you
on the wings. You've driven past me as I'm doing it and yelled at me.
Did I?
You yelled, "A rolling stop is not a stop, sir." And I was like, "Who's that?" And it was Taylor. Do you remember that?
No, but that sounds like something I would do.
Okay, the wingers to look out for on Cameroon. Number 3, which is a kind of confusing number for a winger, right? Njoya, Ajara, and Shu is her name. I think she'll have Ajara on her jersey, but she'll wear number 3 and play on the wing, so you'll be able to spot her, right?
How much of your previewing was spent properly pronouncing French? Because that was phenomenal, my friend.
It was just confident. It was probably inaccurate.
I mean, I thought it was good.
No, I
thought it was good.
Fake it till you make it is my approach. So Ajara, number 3, fast.
Yep.
She really is fast and dribbly, and she wants to run at you. Maybe a little too much. She'll kind of like push and run if she has to. She can cut this way and that, this way and that. And it sounds frustrating to have a player that always dribbles. But if that's the style, press and counter, like what else is she going to do, right? So Ajara, I think on the right wing, you'll see her like dribbling at speed down that wing. If not her, and it's the other side, I think Gabrielle Onguene, number 7, really similar type of player, which sounds really reductive, but I have watched a lot of footage of both players. They really are similar. They both are really dangerously quick in a way that scares fullbacks, and they're both looking to run at you and get in behind you on the counter. The one thing is Onguene prefers the right wing as well. They both prefer the right wing, but I think Onguene is prepared to play left wing. So you'll probably see Ajara number 3 on the right and Onguene number 7 on the left, and just be prepared for them to be unleashed on the counter-attack.
And I would say, I think I did see her playing Gabrielle Onguene.
Yeah, Onguene, yeah.
I think I saw her playing at left wing for her club. So that's why I would say there that I totally agree with everything you've just said about her, but she also is a good example, because I couldn't quite figure out the best way that I wanted to try to explain her.
Yeah.
And what I would say is we get the question a lot about what's the difference between pace and quickness and speed.
Yeah.
I would say she's very quick, and she's a good example of quickness.
What is the difference then?
I still couldn't really tell you other than that I don't from what I saw of her, it didn't stand out as like, oh, like in the open field, like nobody can catch her. She's so fast. It's more of just like she'll get around a defender and then she's gone. Like it's that ability to just accelerate away in tight spaces.
When you make a little bit of space and then you know that's the moment to accelerate because that's the opportunity to get away from the defender.
Yeah. It's that sharpness that stood out to me.
The other thing to really know about them is even though they both play on the wing, they have also both played striker for their clubs. So they're sort of essentially wide attackers as opposed to wingers. So you'll see them dribble in field a lot and kind of go for goal. Yeah, it's not a lot of crossing, it's a lot of like dribble in and get at goal.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And waiting in the middle will be Gabrielle Njoya. She's the player that you mentioned, scored a hat-trick in the previous World Cup. She was kind of, the star. And people maybe, if you're someone who's not really familiar with women's soccer, then you'll maybe be expecting her to do the same thing again. And apparently she's just not quite the same player after a lot of knee injuries. One thing she does have is a willingness to take surprise shots from distance.
All right.
So look out for that. And that's from watching a lot of highlights. She really does take people by surprise because it's like a moment when you wouldn't expect anyone to be shooting from distance and then bang, top corner.
Oh, that's okay. That was going to be my question. Is it bang top corner? Or
it's not over the bar. No, it's on target, which is what makes it really interesting.
Okay.
You asked earlier about sort of an older striker. I think you meant her but didn't mean her, right?
Yeah, yes. Well, she was one who I had sort of read as being like still in the squad, had a breakout tournament, but maybe hasn't had the kind of like the ascent that maybe was expected. To the extent that I believe I looked at their roster just now. I think she's unattached currently, which is not necessarily the strongest.
Right.
Defense.
I mean, there's the idea of like playing for a contract, right?
Yes.
She might be playing to catch the eye, but it depends how well your knees work, right?
Yeah.
The player I thought you might have been thinking of, it's similar to the centre back Meunier. There's a striker who is 35 years old. Her name is Madeleine Ngono Mani. She's tiny, but an absolute poacher.
Tiny.
She scored about 40 goals for Cameroon. She's Cameroon's all-time leading scorer. She's on the roster again, but not expected to start. But if Cameroon are down, you may see that they
Why are you just waving your laptop around? What's happening
I just
here?
pulled the roster up on my laptop to make sure I got her name.
Did you not know where to put it?
No, I didn't have the angle to put it down. And if Cameroon get in trouble like I just did with my laptop, you'll see them bring Mani off the bench, maybe for the last 20 minutes or so, and you expect her to be sort of poaching around for goals. Yeah. I've only given you, theoretically, one key player, and I've talked about 3 or 4 players.
That's fair. Right? I would expect nothing less.
All right, well, I'll try and keep this a little shorter then. The other player who I think is really important, especially to the counter-attack, right, the sort of press and then counter, is number 8, the defensive midfielder, Raissa Feudjio. Raissa Feudjio. First of all, it's a great name.
It's a solid name.
It's spelled like feud, like family feud, J-I-O, Feudjio. Sound accurate?
Yeah.
You'll see her playing number 8, defensive midfielder. She is a disruptor and a distributor. So when they're doing this, Cameroon are doing this sort of swarm, pride press, she's often the one to win the ball or receive the ball, and then she very calmly will sort of, shake loose of whoever's around her, and then she's playing not necessarily like big through balls, but more like line splitting passes. So she might be the one that gets it out wide to the 2 wingers we talked about earlier. So Raissa Feudjio will be the number 8 and the defensive midfielder to watch in terms of winning the ball back and starting the counter attack.
All right. I know we don't do this very much in terms of like who we think is going to win the group or anything like that, but what are your expectations for them, given that it's going to be a strong Canada, it's probably going to be a strong Netherlands team, should be a strong New Zealand team as well?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe it's New Zealand and Cameroon competing for 3rd place.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right.
And it's very possible that either of them could take it.
That sounds about right to me.
All right.
There we are.
So they've got a good chance of going through, but they've also got a good chance of playing really well and not going through, which is, I think, also true for New Zealand.
Okay.
Although you know more about the football fans than I do. Although I do know their nickname.
There you go. We shall soon find out, unless you have anything else to say with Cameroon.
Just a quick mention on the domestic league, which I think we always like to talk about. The Championnat de Football Féminin Elite 1 is a semi-professional domestic league in Cameroon. A few of the players on this roster play in the Cameroonian league, but a lot of the players end up in France because of the common language. Right, it's an easy transition for Cameroonian players to go and play in the professional French league, make a bit more money, higher profile, but an easy transition. It's also worth the reason I want to mention that is it's worth keeping in mind that Cameroon coming and playing in France, they will at least feel a little bit at home.
Oh yeah,
because the language will be the same.
That'll work.
Which might also be true for a handful of Canadian players.
Yes.
Any of the Quebec Canadian players?
Quebecois?
Quebecois.
I do not know.
That
I do not know.
Seemed
But
accurate.
I'm sure they will let us
accurate.
know. Mm-hmm.
So that's all I have to say about Cameroon. Turns out it was a lot.
There we go. Well, we still have 2 teams to get to in this group, but first we should talk about today's sponsor, HelloFresh.
Yeah, okay.
HelloFresh is a meal kit delivery service that shops, plans, and delivers step-by-step recipes and pre-measured ingredients so you can just cook, eat, and enjoy.
I mean, that's perfect while the World Cup is going on, right?
It is.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that because I have found myself...
Games all day.
And also, like, doing this research, it's been a little bit like, I would like to not just eat a vat of pasta, but I don't necessarily have time to, like, do all the prep, do all the grocery shopping. My wife is prepping for the bar, so she also doesn't have the time, which is where HelloFresh comes in because it makes all that stuff very easy. It's all delivered to your door. You don't even have to think. You don't even have to make a grocery list, and nobody wants to make a grocery list.
And you said earlier, maybe I'm not always the best at following instructions. I do follow instructions when it comes to HelloFresh because they have the 6-step pictured recipe cards. I think pictures help me follow it, essentially. Right. I'm a simple man, and pictures help me.
And I'm assuming that, like, with the schedule that we're going to have this summer, both with the Women's World Cup and then with a lot of the other tournaments.
Women's World Cup in the day, Gold Cup at night.
Yeah, but you'll have like breaks in between games. So
that's when you watch Copa America and African Cup of Nations.
Well, but also that's when you make your meal because all meals come together in about 30 minutes max, call for fewer than 2 pots and pans, and require minimal cleanup. So you can sort of watch a game, make your meal, and then eat your meal while you watch the next game.
All right, there are also 3 plans to choose from: the classic, the veggie, or the family. And once you've signed up, you can switch between them whenever you like. So if you sort of decide you're vegetarian one month, you start a family the next month, you can switch back and forth.
Is that how that works?
Maybe, yeah.
Perfect. Yes, so the family dinners, as you just noted there, are fuss-free. So basically they're picky eater, kid-tested, and approved family plan recipes, so you don't have to worry about that either. You can get your kids fed in between games. And
if you would like to try HelloFresh, you can get $80 off your first month of HelloFresh if you go to this URL, hellofresh.com/TSS80. That's the letters TSS, the numbers 80, and enter promo code TSS80.
One more time, that's hellofresh.com/TSS80 and enter the promo code TSS80.
Should we put the link in the show notes just in case people can't remember that?
I suppose we should. While we do that, we'll also say thank you very much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's episode. Now, let's talk New Zealand. The Football Ferns, as you said, although I am giving them a nickname, the Bureaucracy Slayers. That's what I'm going with.
You're welcome. Getting better and better.
Oh, buckle up.
Why are they the Bureaucracy
We still
Slayers?
have Group F to come. Because of the controversy that played out over the course of 2018.
Ooh, hang on. Let me just rub my hands together.
Yeah, I'm gonna take you on a bit of a journey.
Give me some controversy.
This could go for a while.
Yes.
All right. It's why I didn't comment.
Cleared your throat.
Yeah, it's why I didn't comment when you were like, I'm going for a while in Cameroon. I was like, buckle up. All right. So basically, New Zealand appointed Austrian manager Andreas Heraf in 2017, August of 2017. They appointed him as their technical director, the national technical director, in August of 2017. He immediately implements his chip and star tactics, is what he called them. It's bunker and kick the ball long. It's long ball.
Chip and star.
That's what he calls it. Yes, but
that's it. That's some fancy rebranding.
It is It's fancy rebranding.
That's some Frank Lutz branding.
It's also distressing branding. Because he implements this across all national age groups. Now New Zealand, they implemented a kind of build out of the back, possession oriented national game plan in 2011 that a lot of players have credited with helping kind of grow the game, make New Zealand play more attractive soccer, which keeps people wanting to play and get involved.
Make the game not hideous to watch.
Exactly. So that already is an issue.
Yeah.
Then, in December of 2017, he becomes the manager of the national team. So now, technical director and manager, as some Americans might recall, that's not necessarily the best kind of order because if you want to complain about the manager to the technical director, well, then you're doing the same thing. So it kind of becomes an issue because basically he takes over in December of 2017. They have some training camps. They go on tour, I think one tour in Thailand, one tour in Spain. I think unbeknownst to like a lot of the public.
The long ball tour.
Yes. Well, we'll get to that one because it's kind of a thing. But basically, I think there was at least one player who wanted to go public, who like filed a letter of complaint saying that basically the training camps were unprofessional, that they weren't being conducted in a professional manner, that it was a very like toxic environment going on in the team.
Do we know who that one player is?
We do.
Okay.
We'll talk about that in a second.
I see. Oh, you're building suspense.
I am indeed. Because
Chris Gethard.
That letter we'll get back to.
Okay.
Because we're going to move to June of 2018. In early June, New Zealand lose at home 3-1 to Japan.
Okay.
And Heraf afterwards is kind of asked by this reporter, reporter, why did you set up so defensively? They basically played ultra defensively and still lost. And he said, well, what do you want me to do? We'd be destroyed by Japan if we tried to play any sort of attacking soccer. We'd lose 8-0. And basically kind of condemned the entire nation of New Zealand as we're never going to be able to compete with them. They're on a much different level. This is at a time when Japan were ranked number 11, New Zealand were ranked number 20. So it's not as though they were this kind of no way, have no history in playing soccer. They have a strong history of playing attacking, vibrant soccer.
Yeah.
At least that's, I think, the kind of argument that a lot of New Zealand fans would go with.
Got it.
So this is where I'd like to talk about Abby Erceg for a moment. Abby Erceg is my key player that I want to spotlight.
Yeah.
For two reasons. The first is certainly what she does on the field. She's a 29-year-old center back, a veteran, 135 appearances. She was the NWSL Defender of the Year in 2018. She's won 2 different championships, one with Western New York, one with North Carolina Courage in 2018.
Okay.
She is also retired from the national team twice. First time was in a dispute with New Zealand. She cited a lack of support, I believe, for the development of girls soccer at youth level. She retires. She comes out of retirement. She's kind of brought out of retirement. And then she starts playing for Andreas Herath, who's ultra defensive, and she retires again.
The irony is, I watched some clips of Erceg, and she's really good at long balls.
Yes,
right?
she really is. Which is
long pass.
It's telling, right? It suited her. She didn't want to play it. Now, she, I believe, if you go with the reporting that I've seen, is essentially the one that wanted to go public about her complaints with Herath. And
she's important, right? I imagine she's an important centre back. She carries some sway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And is a veteran figure in the team. Basically, there's a New Zealand publication called Stuff, not the magazine here in the U.S., but there's a publication called Stuff.
Stuff.co.nz.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're familiar.
Or NZ, they might call it.
And basically, she kind of contacted them saying, I would like to go public about some of my concerns with the state of the national team. They basically told the New Zealand Federation, hey, this is this person's going to go on record. They wanted comment, I think. And basically then Abby Erceg was told by the New Zealand Players Association, just a reminder that if you bring the game into disrepute in the country, you'll be fined and you could face suspension. So basically that was them saying, you're not do not go public. Erceg instead retires, doesn't talk about why she retires. Then comes this game against Japan where they go ultra defensive, and she talks. She has some things to say. She basically publicly criticized the team and the quality of the team afterwards, saying as to why she retired, quote, I couldn't stand to wear that fern on my chest anymore when his vision was to cower in a corner and not get beat too much. She kind of went on to say, that's not what I've worked for my entire career. So that's the start of it, what I would kind of dub a player revolt. Katie Duncan, who is another veteran player, 122 career appearances. She calls for Herath to step down. Her quote was, the decision to park the bus was a load of crap, not good enough, and not the Kiwi way. 12 players for the national team, I'm assuming those 2 players included, basically submit letters of complaint to the New Zealand Federation and say we're not playing for them again.
So it was that Japan result and approach to the game that made, I assume, the Players Association is basically the players, right?
Yes.
So it made enough of those players flip to support Erceg as opposed to thinking, let's stay the course with this longball dude.
Yes, publicly.
Johnny Longballs.
More on that to come.
Okay.
Because, so these 12 players basically say...
It's going to be a long episode.
It is. These 12 players say, they file these letters of complaint, they say we're not playing for the team again as long as he's the coach.
Okay.
Which I have to say is it's an incredibly courageous thing to do in my opinion. Because this is 2018, it's the lead up to a World Cup. If New Zealand calls their bluff, then these players miss out on a World Cup. And this is similar to some of the other teams.
And a lot of money, I would imagine. I imagine it's similar to the US situation where you make a lot more money playing for the national team than anything else.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it's also for a lot of these players, Rosie White talked about this, that
Rosie White? Are we going to talk about Rosie White later?
We sure are.
Okay.
We sure are. Eventually. Sorry, I know I'm going long.
That's fine. No, I'm into it.
All right. But she talked about how, this is for a lot of them, and I think the new current coach, Tom Sermanni, said, this could be your last chance to play in a major tournament, for this group of players. All the veteran and experienced players are the ones who kind of filed these letters of complaint. In response, Herath is suspended in June, steps down in July. His explanation was that the players couldn't handle his European tactics. They just wanted to have fun and post on social media. That's what he said. Worth noting that I believe he had only coached at the men's side and Austrian youth national teams. That's it. No women's experience, no senior national team experience. Then comes...
He's the worst version of what Phil Neville could have been for England.
Yes, exactly. Which is not necessarily, they don't mention Phil Neville, but the idea of hiring foreign men to come in and coach the women's team comes into play because basically the players still refuse to play until there's an independent review into New Zealand football. Wow. There is a lawyer who conducts the review. She notes, amongst many other things, there is no diversity policy in place, no women in senior roles, a boys' club mentality that tolerates inappropriate behavior. She also verified player accounts of bullying and harassment by Andreas Heraf. One of her findings was that the players were legitimately offended, humiliated, and intimidated in practice. Basically, there's allegations that he harassed these players, abused these players, and that's part of the reason why those letters of complaint were filed. So it's this weird...
It's not a confidence builder.
No, it's not. But it's also this conundrum where the New Zealand Federation was like, oh, they don't like the style of play, they don't like the tactics, whatever, this isn't a big deal. And so that's kind of the way it was publicly, is that these players are mad because they don't like the style.
But that's just the tip of the iceberg.
And then it comes out that there's been this toxic atmosphere, and it goes back to those letters of complaint that were filed in March that were shelved. They didn't make them public. The New Zealand Federation didn't deal with them, and that's another issue. Is now basically it feels a little bit like they kind of covered it up and publicly misled about what the actual issues were at play. Since then, Chief Executive Andy Martin has retired. So the Chief Executive of New Zealand Football has retired.
This goes beyond that coach. It goes beyond Johnny Longballs.
Yes. Beyond Johnny Longballs, yes. Austrian Johnny Longballs. So instead, in comes Tom Sermanni.
Tom Sermanni,
yes.
Former U.S. coach.
Exactly.
Briefly.
And Orlando City as well, yes. And he has been, by all accounts, I guess a steadying hand. I think players are enjoying playing for him. All of the players who I talked about having retired or protesting have come back into the fold.
Is he Australian?
Scottish.
Sure. Oh, is he? Okay.
I think he's Scottish. I might be wrong on that one. Maybe he's Australian, but I don't know if the Kiwis would hire an Aussie. I'm sure they would. But yeah, so it's basically the summary of all that is that the Football Ferns battled a system of institutionalized cronyism and harassment, and more or less won.
Yes.
And so
people power.
Yeah, but what I want to reiterate that it's the kind of veteran players in that squad that did that, and that is kind of what I want to go back to spotlighting, is that the veterans in this team are the ones who kind of take the stands, lead the team, and keep them on the right track.
Okay, Tom Sermanni, born in Scotland,
Yeah.
is Scottish, but has worked in Australian football a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's Scottish. Yes, and that's why I want to talk about some of the veterans.
Yes.
I've already talked about Abby Erceg, again, the 29-year-old center back.
And she's in now, right? She's going to play?
She is in now, and as you said, she can play a long ball. That's
the irony.
That's the thing that's pretty amazing, is that it kind of did suit her style, but I think it was just more of that long ball was a just always hoof it long, and less of a possess, and then kind of look for those vulnerabilities and exploit them with the long ball, because that's what I would say she does. It's a lot of step tackles, not a lot of slide tackles. She pokes the ball away and immediately looks to kind of launch counterattacks, not just aimless balls up top for one person standing there and hoping for some sort of thing to happen.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. So did you get to look at Abby Erceg as well?
Yeah, so I also saw a lot of headed wins on corners.
Yeah.
Really good at attacking the ball on corners, Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah. So, I think she's going to police that defense, but then also her long ball ability does make them a threat on counterattacks pretty consistently, because she's kind of always looking for that. But then, can just do the defensive job that you want. I also want to talk about another veteran for them, Hannah Wilkinson, which is the other player I'd like to spotlight. She, of her own individual journey, 27-year-old forward, 25 goals for New Zealand, formerly of the Tennessee Volunteers. She had an elongated career there because she tore her ACL. That was in 2015. She then re-tore her ACL in October of 2018. Wait,
that's quite recent.
It is very recent.
She's back?
She is back. Wow. They've very much been managing her minutes.
Yeah.
So she's been getting a half here, a half there. But she is back in, and I think will probably end up starting.
Her name again?
Her name is Hannah Wilkinson.
Hannah Wilkinson.
She's 5'9", very good in the air, and can crack a volley from distance.
She looks taller when I saw her. She's
right?
She got spring.
Yes.
5'9" is pretty tall, right? 5'9" is the height of Hope Solo.
Yes.
Or Alyssa Naya.
Yeah.
But it's not
She looks taller, though. I'm with you. I think it might be the top ponytail that makes the hair go up, that makes her look even bigger. But yes, she's an aerial threat, but then also can sort of have those predatory strikes that you would expect from a goal scorer. If she can't go, or if she doesn't go the full game, then it will either be Sarah Gregorius, who played against the U.S. recently.
It's a cracking name.
It is. She has 34 goals, or maybe it will be Rosie White.
Rosie
White might go up top. What I have seen, sometimes goes up top, sometimes is a number 10, sometimes is a wide attacker. That's what she was for New Zealand when they played against the United States recently. She's a 25-year-old attacker, 24 goals. Most recently with the Chicago Red Stars.
Yeah.
She is one of several players on this New Zealand roster who I think, if you look, have unattached next to them in terms of their club career. But I think it's because the Australian season has ended, because I think she's one of those players who kind of jumps back and forth.
Yeah, W League and NWSL.
Exactly. So that league is over. Rather than immediately go sign with an NWSL team, I think a lot of those players are focusing on the World Cup. Then afterwards, we'll look to their kind of club careers.
Okay. Do you mind if we explain our Rosie White connection?
No, please, go ahead.
When we did our summer tour with the Cooligans, July 2018, we did an event in Chicago, and one of our guests on stage was Rosie White.
Yep.
And she was brilliant.
She was real funny.
She was really funny on stage. She was excellent.
Do you remember her not remembering the two Chicago Fire players?
Yes.
That was outstanding.
She asked Daniel Johnson, who are you again?
Yes, exactly. So brutal. So brutal.
But she was funny.
She had some solid burns.
Yeah.
She had some solid burns, yeah.
New Zealand is a nation of comedy, right? Taika Waititi.
It really is.
Fight the Concords and all that. But that's more like friendly comedy.
Yeah.
She was more acerbic.
She had some zingers. She had some zingers, which is fitting because she's a very good attacker. She's very good on the ball. She can score goals, but she is tough. And that's the other thing I want to talk about. She had double foot surgery. She had double fractures in her feet. And I watched a video of her. You can find it via her Instagram, and it's very moving because it's a good reminder that for a lot of the women that we've been talking about, like, this is not they're on $1 million a year or $20 million a year or anything like that. It's very much like my career might be over because I've got a foot injury, and that's where she was. That double foot surgery maybe meant that was the end of her career. I think she was kind of resigned to that being the case, but here she is potentially starting in a World Cup. But she's also tough because she can handle the challenge. Lindsey Horan flattened her in that U.S. game like 2 minutes in, and I was bummed because I remember, same thing you were talking about, being like, oh, Rosie White, like, yeah, she was on stage, she's awesome, and then she got crushed by Horan, and I thought, well, that might be the end of Rosie White's night. Instead, she plays the entire game.
Yeah.
She gets back up. I think maybe had a sprained jaw is what it looked like, but she handles it. But I also want to use her performance in that game to talk a bit about what New Zealand do.
Okay.
Because in that U.S. game...
Let me guess, not long balls.
Not so much. They will on occasion if the situation is on, especially if they're playing against a team like the United States.
Yeah.
In that game, which they lost 5-0, it seems like, oh, okay, they got crushed by the U.S. 5-0. That's not very good, and that's the truth on paper. In reality, it's a team that I think a lot of their players, most of their players, had arrived not very long before that game from New Zealand and are now playing...
That's quite far.
And keep in mind, seasonal flip, that it's pretty cold in New Zealand, or certainly not nearly as warm as it is in the U.S. So to arrive, jet lag, heat, they played very well and frustrated the United States for the first 35 minutes. Then the U.S. score on a great ball by Megan Rapinoe, and it kind of goes from there.
Yeah.
But those first 30 minutes...
just cowered in the corner.
Exactly. That would have done it. That would have done it, exactly. It's against their nature. It's against their Kiwi nature, Daryl.
Yeah.
But that is, I think, those first 30 minutes are what you'll see them do against the stronger teams in this group, certainly, which is basically setting out in kind of a 4-2-3-1. They're another one that has a lot of variety to what they do, but essentially it's a 4-2-3-1, but they sit back and it's almost a 4-5-1 defensively, except it's not just 5 across the line. In that game, at least, it was Rosie White who did a lot of stepping out to kind of bridge the gap and look to cause problems to the U.S. before they engaged that first line of 5 defenders.
Got it.
But she was also the one who routinely was looking to spring the counterattack. That if anything looked like there was going to be an interception, if it looked like it was going to be on, you would see her kind of moving ahead very quickly to try to get that ball. So again, she may be doing that from the right-hand side or maybe doing it centrally. But I think that's what you'll see from New Zealand, is sort of sitting back a little bit to frustrate the opponent, but then looking to break quickly on the counter through individual combinations, not necessarily just sit back, hoof it long, and hope something happens.
Yeah.
It felt very much more so like there are practiced patterns for how you break on the counter to exploit vulnerabilities.
So this is going to be interesting then.
Yeah.
Because, so just to give you a very brief preview of Netherlands, they're going to be a very attacking team.
Yeah.
Canada will be an attacking team, but you've got Cameroon and New Zealand are counter-attacking teams.
Yes.
So we can assume Cameroon and New Zealand will counter-attack against the other two, the big teams, Canada and Netherlands. The interesting thing will be when Cameroon and New Zealand clash, they can't both counterattack.
They cannot.
So that'll be the really interesting game to see how that plays out.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Yes, it will. I mean, and I'm excited to watch New Zealand because you can't go through what they went through for the reasons they did. Not obviously the harassment and intimidation that's a separate issue, I guess. What I mean more so is that you can't talk about like, oh, this isn't the way we want to play. We don't want to play defensive and then come out and play defensive. So I feel like you're going to see them almost because they fought so hard to prove that that's not who they are. You're going to see them fight that much harder, I think, to not just be a long ball merchant sort of team.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and one more player who I'd like to spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
Then we'll move on. I know I've only talked a little bit about New Zealand.
It's fine.
Is Ria Percival, who's a 29-year-old central midfielder, kind of a right back for West Ham is what she ends up playing. I think for New Zealand she'll be more of like a holding midfielder, certainly in the midfield.
She's reversed Tyler Adams.
Yes, exactly. That's well said. 141 appearances. Safe to assume that she was also one of those veteran players who protested.
Yeah.
But she, I think, is going to be like sort of the one who clogs at the midfield, helps organize, helps kind of put out some of those very threatening attacks, but then is excellent with her crossing ability and, again, with her kind of splitting the lines, her vision to spot like opportunities that are developing. I think she'll be very key in launching some of those counterattacks as well.
And her name again?
Ria Percival.
Ria Percival. Mm-hmm. All right. What do we know about New Zealand domestic soccer?
It is somewhat limited. You have the Lotto Sport Italia NRFL Premier League, I believe is what it is. It's a semi-professional league. Some of these players do play in New Zealand. Many more so are playing in Australia and then playing in NWSL. And you really do have a lot of...
W League is probably the draw, right?
Exactly, yeah. And then you've got a lot of variation. Some in Germany, some in France, some in England, some in Sweden. A big spread to this roster. But they all come back to represent the Ferns. To put the fern on the chest.
The football fern. Uh-huh. Rosie White has one on her shin or her ankle.
That would make sense.
Do you remember her saying, let me show you how proud I am of New Zealand?
Oh, there you go. That's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
So just know when you see it that tattoo's down there.
Yes. Yeah. And apologies to the many, many other capable and talented New Zealand players, but you
love the New Zealand team so much, you're apologising for the players you didn't mention.
Well, it's just more so because I spent so much time reading. Like, I read that entire independent report last night because I was so fascinated. Like, okay, how did this happen? Why did that happen? It was intriguing, Daryl. It was intriguing.
So we still have the Netherlands to go, who I would argue are the most exciting team in this group. So do not switch off. Don't change the channel.
But did they murder bureaucracy? That's my question, and the answer is no.
Don't change the channel because we'll be back after this ad break to talk Netherlands. Today's show, no flipping, as Larry Sanders used to say. Today's show is sponsored by Hims, a wellness brand for men. You've heard us talking about Hims and how they're helping guys look their best. If you haven't yet, it's time to see what they're all about.
That's because I believe, what's the percentage? 66% of men?
66% of men.
Lose the hair by the age of 35.
Start to lose the hair by the age of 35.
Start to lose it. No, it's all gone. That's it. You turn 35, gone.
You wake up one morning.
It's very strange.
Happy birthday. Also, we have some news.
It's the Tooth Fairy's evil cousin. She comes in, she shaves your head, and that's it. That's all you have.
The Tooth Fairy.
What you should not do is believe that. What you should do is do your own research, and that's where Hims comes into the equation, because their solutions to hair loss are backed by science. As they would tell you, when you start to notice the hair loss, it's already too late, so you want to take advantage as quickly as you can. Basically, if you notice there used to be a hair there and there's no hair there anymore, that hair might not come back, but the hairs that are around him who are still there fighting for dear life, you can help them fight, Daryl.
Did you say
help them fight.
Do you refer to every hair follicle as an individual him?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that works.
I guess that's why it's called Hims.
Yeah. They. It could be a they. That's fine. They are fighting for their lives.
So Hims was created by a guy who knows that some men's health conversations are easier online than in person.
Yes.
And we know that men are not comfortable talking about their health in any aspect. One of the great things about Hims is there are no more sort of awkward in-person doctor visits or long pharmacy lines. You connect to real doctors online, and that can save you hours and, most importantly, money.
How does it save you money, Mr. Grove?
Well, if you would like to get started with the Hims Complete Hair Kit, just $5 today, right now, while supplies last and subject to doctor's approval. See website for full details and safety information. This would cost hundreds if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy somewhere else. What is the URL, Taylor, that people would need to go to get the Hims Complete Hair Kit for just $5?
It is forhims.com/total soccer.
It is.
Forhims.com/total soccer. FORHIMS.com/total soccer. Do I need to spell total soccer, or do you think we're okay?
I think people can
TOTALSOCCER. Done.
We'll put the link in the show notes just in
That makes sense.
case.
Thank you very much to For Hims for sponsoring today's episode. Mr. Grove, you teased it. Let's talk the Dutch.
Oh, it's Netherlands time. It's Netherlands time.
Voetbal.
I'm going to say from the top, maybe the most exciting team in the whole tournament.
So I have heard.
Yep.
Here's the thing. I promise this is legitimate. Aside from the players that you told me about, I have refrained from reading about the Netherlands or like watching the Netherlands because all I saw was headlines saying they're the most exciting. They're going to be so great. They're going to be so wonderful. And I didn't want to spoil it. I want to know, Daryl, why are they so exciting?
They're just super attacking.
All right.
Yeah, okay. They are called. The nickname is Leeuwinnen. Can you guess what that means?
I cannot.
Lionesses.
Okay.
Picture the Dutch badge.
Oh, right.
So the Lionesses, similar to England. They should be the Trident.
Oh, boy.
Because they have a deadly three-pronged attack. It is.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
First of all, is it a 4-3-3? I want it to be a 4-3-3.
It's a Dutch 4-3-3.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
No, it's
That's
a 4-3-3.
what I wanted. I'm so happy.
Yeah. If it's not 4-3-3, it's not Dutch.
Is that their version of if it's Scottish, it's crap? All right, perfect.
So the three-pronged attack I talked about, it's the front three, right? It's two wingers and a striker. It is Lieke Martens on the left. It is Shanice van der Sanden on the right. And Vivianne Miedema in the middle, the centre forward. Those are my three key players because I can't leave any of them out. So this is the one where I'm kind of cheating and I'm going to give you three players.
All right.
But I want to come back to them later because I want to talk about them each sort of in a little bit of detail, if that's okay with you. But just a quick reminder, it's Lieke Martens, Shanice van der Sanden and Vivianne Miedema. Okay. I want to talk about what makes this Dutch team so great, okay?
I want to hear about what makes this Dutch team so great.
It's a big moment for this Dutch team. So the Dutch came into the 2015 Women's World Cup tipped to do big things, right? And to maybe earn a seat at the big table. You know what I mean? Become one of the elite teams. Instead, they finished third in the group, and then they lost to Japan in the round of 16, and everyone was like, maybe they're not so good. Maybe they're not so good, right? Then they hosted Euro 2017 and won it convincingly, playing some beautiful 4-3-3 attacking soccer, and everyone was like, oh, maybe this Dutch team's actually pretty good.
I hear there are no more doors at the Dutch stadiums because they were blown off by this team.
Yes. So 2019 is the real chance for sort of these players to show that Dutch women's soccer is up there with France and Germany and these sort of other elite women's soccer teams, right? They want to show that they're for real. They come into this on a good run, right? They had a rough, if you look at Algarve Cup, they did the Algarve Cup results, not so good, but they're experimenting with players.
Yeah.
When they went back to the 4-3-3 and the Trident, let's experiment with the players, but the Trident's going to start, right? Their most recent results since April, they beat Mexico 2-0, Chile 7-0, and then Australia 3-0. That's the hot form they're coming into the World Cup with.
That's a decent rate of return there.
Especially beating Australia 3-0. That one I think is interesting. You previewed Australia and talked about how open they are, and that makes them really exciting.
Yeah.
So imagine that game. That was an open, exciting game between two attacking teams, and the Netherlands came out on top 3-0.
Sounds like one of them was slightly too open.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
And I'm going to guess made all the more open by the Trident?
Yes.
Okay.
I watched that game. It was in the Netherlands, so, there's that as well. They were at home. They have in the crowd someone playing some sort of trumpet or something, and they just play various tunes throughout the game, and it makes the atmosphere really lively. I wouldn't be surprised. Netherlands is close enough to France that they get enough travelling fans that you'll hear trumpets when the Netherlands play.
I would enjoy that.
Yeah. And if they're so good that maybe you'll just hear them in your head.
Love the Dutch.
So they are coached by Serena Wiegman, former Dutch international. She took over in 2016, and she plays a Dutch 4-3-3.
That's what I like to hear.
Sometimes it's kind of like a 4-2-3-1.
I won't hear of it.
There's a number 10, Van der Donk, who kind of drifts forward a little bit, but it's still basically a 4-3-3, but the middle three is like a 10 and 2 6s.
Okay.
You get it?
So it's a 4-3-3. So that's all I want.
It's a 4-3-3. The first thing I want to talk about is their pressing. It's not always like all-out aggressive press, but it's a very force you kind of press, as in like one player will press to direct the opponent to pass the ball this way, and then another Dutch player will be waiting to pounce on it, right? It's kind of a very organised press of like, we force you to go where we want you to go, and eventually we box you into a corner, and then we get the ball back, and then you're in all kinds of trouble.
Intentionally or unintentionally, I feel like you're doing a good job of sort of working in the lion, like metaphors and analogies here and there, whether or not you mean to. It's well done.
Completely unintentional.
They pounce. They pounce on the loose balls.
They do pounce
they
on
you
the
in,
loose
and then they pounce
balls.
on you.
Well, here's the interesting thing. The front three I mentioned, again, their names are Lieke Martens, Shanice van der Sanden, Vivianne Miedema. I'll be talking about their attacking styles later on. They're all pretty quick, especially the two wide players, and that also helps with pressing because they're quick to close, but they're very smart about doing it directionally.
Shanice van der Sanden is unfairly fast, is what I have written down.
That's true, right? They absolutely are unfairly fast. And again, before I get to that front three that I'm excited to talk about, a very important player is Daniela van der Donk. She's the number 10. First of all, she's a cheat. She's absolutely a cheat because I think she's got glue on her cleats.
Okay.
When she brings the ball down...
Oh, okay. Not what I thought you meant, but sure.
It sticks to her foot, right? She's a beautiful player to watch in that sense. She brings the ball down. It is so smooth and classy. But she also organises the press. That's the really impressive thing. You can see her literally directing traffic in terms of where she wants her teammates to go, like pointing, like, you there, you there, you there. And she makes the press happen while wearing the number 10. So she's not even like a luxury number 10. She's leading the press number 10, which I think is really exciting.
And I feel like your traffic conductor needs to be wearing a bright orange vest. She's already got that too. There we go.
She's got that down, right? Okay, in terms of style of play, 2 fast wingers that we'll talk about, and a lot of possession.
I feel like you're teasing this a lot.
Well, basically, they're so important to how the team plays. I could either have led with like long descriptions of them, or I can set up the tactical stuff.
All right.
So that's what I'm trying to do.
Set that table.
So in the 4-3-3, 2 really fast wingers, but they're very good at sort of dragging wide to pull the team out, sort of Berhalter-ish, right? I mean, Berhalter's very influenced by the Dutch because he played there. This is a very Dutch style, right? It's about unbalancing the opposition, drawing them out with some they play out of the back, they pass out of the back, possession soccer, until you've drawn the team out of position a little bit, and then they hit you down the wing to one of these pacey wingers. Yep. But they don't do it until the moment is right. And that's when it gets... Or they press and win the ball back and then hit you down the wing with those wingers. And then it's even worse because you're sort of all stretched out.
Now do we get to talk about those wingers?
One more player first. There is a centre-back who is key to a lot of this because sometimes they will also possess the ball but then just hit sort of a random long ball to the wingers. Her name is Dominique Bloodworth. And it's such a great... Almost Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones?
I know what you meant. House Bloodworth definitely sounds like a thing.
Or Harry Potter-ish name, right? Dominique Bloodworth. Good defender, just in the normal...
That's a Slytherin name right
there. She's probably a Slytherin. Defendery style. But she can hit great, not even long balls, but long diagonal passes, essentially. So look out for Dominique Bloodworth coming out of the back.
Now I'm looking at all the other Dutch names and assigning them different...
different houses.
Different houses, yes.
Which house would you put Shanice van der Sanden in? Because that's the first key player we're going to talk about.
I mean, it's the ruthless pace combined with like the ruthlessness of the attacking. I feel like again that's got to be Slytherin.
You want them all in Slytherin?
I think I might be. So
Shanice van der Sanden is 26 years old, right winger, plays for Lyon.
Yep.
I could end it right there.
Warning sign number 1.
Then you know she's good.
Yes. How do they have all these players? I don't get it.
Because they also have Delphine Cascaruna plays right wing as well. I don't know how do they share minutes. Maybe they do. Shanice van der Sanden on the right wing, as you said. Unfairly fast.
Yep.
She's also just a sort of character, right? Yep. She is full of verve. She is the only player that I know of in this tournament who's going to be wearing red lipstick.
Okay.
Yeah. Most players, as I understand it...
Yeah, right, yeah.
Most players don't wear lipstick because it's just not helpful during the game, right? But Shanice van der Sanden, I saw a video with Megan Rapinoe, and the first thing she mentioned is, Shanice van der Sanden, she stands out because of the red lipstick, right? And then she's dyed her hair platinum. She just really pops on the screen.
Yep.
And so you already pay attention to her. And then she gets the ball. What she loves to do is go to the outside. So right-footed on the right wing, she will almost always go to the outside, get to the end line. We were talking about the difference earlier between quickness and pace.
Yeah.
She does that thing where she looks like she's in top gear because you're like, she's real quick and the defender's running backwards. But then she'll do a move or just open up a bit of space, and then she hits the nitros, and then she gets to the end line and zips the ball across.
That's the part that I don't fully understand the physics of, because I agree with everything you've just said, that it's like top speed, but then another top speed on top to get to the end line. But then, I don't know if it's her center of gravity or if it's the way that she's practiced like putting the balls in, but she doesn't really, you don't see her ever have that like, I dribbled out of bounds, or like, I couldn't get to it on the end, and like I whiffed on the cross and put it directly out of bounds the way you might if you have a player running at full speed.
Yeah.
She always somehow manages to get like her hips around it, so that ball comes like firing into the box and just creates absolute chaos. I saw that routinely, and I've seen it when she's played in the past when we've watched her play. It's pretty ridiculous and pretty good.
You know the Wolves player, Adama Traore? Most people remember him from the Premier League. He very often goes past people because he's lightning quick as well. But he will do that thing where he's trying to cross at pace, and then it's not that accurate.
Yeah.
If I could get Adama Traore to watch one player and say, is it possible for you to do what she does? it would be Van der Sanden. I would really ask him to watch Shanice Van der Sanden and say, can you do what she does? Because that ability to cross at pace or like play balls in at pace is absolutely killer.
Can we talk about her opposite wing partner?
Yes. One final thing on Van der Sanden. The other thing she'll do is when her opposite wing partner is crossing from the left, Van der Sanden will crash the far post. A lot of headers at the far post for Van der Sanden. So she'll score a lot of those as well. Double threat. At least, probably more than a double threat. On the left, Lieke Martens. Lieke Martens. Euro 2017, when they won it, she was the best player. Like, literally, she was voted best player of the tournament. She was also the FIFA Player of the Year in 2017.
I'm going to say she was also the most fouled player at that tournament.
Yes.
I do not know that at all. I have not seen any of the statistics, but I've watched her play.
It feels right.
Yeah, I have her as the scourge of Bayern Munich because in the clips that I saw from that game, she was just constantly getting like cleared out because she manages to get behind defenders so consistently.
Here's the scary thing then. Equally fast to Van der Sanden. But she's on the left and she's right-footed, so it's a different style, right? Instead of going to the outside to then like zip some crosses in, she's more likely to cut inside on her right foot and go at people and maybe dribble into the box. It's a different kind of threat. Capable of going outside, but very capable of coming inside on that right foot as well.
I don't mean this in terms of like the footedness or anything, or necessarily even the pace, but she reminded me a lot of Megan Rapinoe, actually.
That's interesting.
Like she can use a little bit of speed. She can play those balls in, certainly. But I also saw her do exactly what you just said. Like there's cutbacks, and then there's like cutting inside and dribbling inside and looking for like little incisive passes that aren't necessarily like get to the end line and crossing it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, like she can do that, don't get me wrong, but it just reminded me more of Megan Rapinoe, where she seems to be always looking for different avenues of attack rather than just like get to the end line, cross, beat the player with pace, cross.
She's another one who literally says, my favourite player is Ronaldinho. That's who I like to play like. Yeah. And right-footed on the left wing, dribbling into the box. She's got a few like hip swivel moves and more than a few tricks and like spins and turns, like much more so than Van der Sanden, who's more about the like just find space and go. Lieke Martens will like pull off a few more tricks, a little more flashy.
And I also have, I'm not going to make the noise because I don't like the noise, but I'm going to say her delivery is chef's kiss.
It is, right?
It's real, real good.
Her crosses, yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I enjoyed about this, as I said, I like kind of avoided reading too much about the Dutch national team, but I enjoyed when you sent the list of players, you sent them in the order you did, that it was Shanice Van der Sanden first, Lieke Martens second, and I was like, all right, so one side and the other side, both very fast, both with excellent delivery. I'm going to assume the third player is a very good like central striker, and you did not disappoint.
She did not disappoint. Vivianne Miedema. Vivianne Miedema, only 22 years old.
Yep.
She's already scored 58 goals in 75 appearances for the Netherlands.
That'll work.
58 in 75. She plays for Arsenal.
I love that she plays for Arsenal because it feels only right that Arsenal have a silky Dutch goal scorer playing up top for them. They need that at all times.
And it is, now that it is maybe worth noting that I think I mentioned when we were talking about Nikita Paris on the England preview show, I think I suggested or straight up said that Man City won the Premier League last year.
I think I said that too.
Man City did win the Premier League. That Man City won the Women's Super League. They did not. They won the FA Cup and the League Cup. Arsenal won the Women's Super League last year. So apologies to Arsenal ladies fans. Just a mistake on my part. Straight up, got my research wrong.
Apology not accepted on their behalf.
It was Pep talking about the treble.
Yeah, it's his fault.
Through me. But yeah, Arsenal won the WSL last year, and Miedema was the Women's Player of the Year, voted for by the PFA, the Professional Football Association. Scored 31 goals in that title-winning campaign.
And has that like that quality of never looking particularly bothered. Like it just always is just like, I'll just score.
So here's why I think this is really, really important. She is calm and steady and composed. But you think about, if you're a defender, think about what's happening outside of her, right? You've got wingers probably on a counter-attack or in like a hole they've opened up through unpositioning you, pulling you out of position. You've got breakneck pace wingers getting to the end line, zipping really fast balls in. It is an absolute panic in there. And then you've got Miedema, who's in there, and she really does sometimes just find a bit of space, receive the ball, take a touch, and knock it in. She's like the only calm person in the box as these balls are being zipped in. It is the perfect combination of like pace and quickness and everything's happening all at once to someone who can almost like see the Matrix and slow it all down.
I think I've said
Miedema sees the Matrix. I'm calling it.
I like that one. I think I've used this before. It's probably an apocryphal quote, but it's like the old quote about the U.S. military, which is like the U.S. Army is so effective in battle because war is chaos, and the American Army practices chaos on a daily basis. I feel like that's the Dutch attack right there. Is like. It just feels like it's this frenetic, like everyone's running as hard as they can and there's so much crossing and there's so much shooting, but it's like, yeah, if you're conditioned to that, then you just kind of operate within that.
Yes, and you'll see it just take a couple of small touches just to open up a bit of space and score. And my favourite thing, the thing that makes it look more composed than anything, is I've watched a lot of Miedema goals. I have never seen her run in celebration. I've only seen her do a very slow jog in celebration.
Exactly.
She knows that too.
or like she'll hug the person who is most close to her, whether or not they were actually involved in the play.
Almost like she doesn't care.
I think or just like, I don't really want to run much more. I already ran so much on this attack that I will just stand here and hug whomever is around. Yeah. But it's yes, she is smooth on the ball. She's got like pinpoint finishing. She never seems particularly concerned about like the angles. She always manages to find the right angle.
She hits it from pretty acute angle, right?
I have her as the perfect exclamation point to the other two players we've already talked about.
Yes, it's a perfect combination, right?
Yep.
The thing I'm really interested in, like, given her like slow jog celebration, if she scores at a World Cup, like maybe she breaks out into a sprint or like a half jog or at 60% pace. Like, I really hope she scores. I'm pretty confident she will score. I want to see her first celebration to see if she because it's the World Cup, just goes the extra acceleration, or if she's just still slow jog, hug someone. Let's get back and score another one. Back to the halfway line, everybody.
This is as usual, indeed.
One final thing on Miedema, she can also come deep and connect play.
Yeah.
When the Netherlands are doing that sort of slower build-up. Yeah. And that is again, it's a Berhalter thing, right? Again, he stole it from the Dutch.
I was going to say. I don't think she stole it from Berhalter, yeah.
She'll come deep, and that's part of like maybe pulling a striker out, and then pulling a centre-back with her, and then there's a gap between the other centre-back and the full-back, and that's one of those places where the ball can be played through for the two wingers, Martens and Van der Sanden, to run onto.
So you're saying they're good?
I'm saying they're good. I'm saying they're dangerous. I think they'll score a lot of goals, and they'll be fun to watch doing it. The only small downside is they are determined to play out of the back to begin with, possession style, and sometimes they get caught out. So I think that's the opportunity for someone, is to press them playing out of the back. Maybe you can win the ball and go at them. Yeah.
All right. It's going to be a good group.
Yeah, it is, right? Group E looks really good. Oh, a little bit on the domestic league.
Bring in the heat.
There's a really interesting thing with the Dutch domestic league. There used to be a Bene League. Can you guess what that is?
Nope.
Belgium and Netherlands had a joint league, I think, to get professional women's soccer going. They said, let's unite, Voltron it, and we'll form a combined league.
Don't tell Luxembourg.
Don't tell Luxembourg. We don't want them dragging us down. That was abandoned in around 2014 when they started disagreeing about who should keep the most money. Yeah. So now there is an Eredivisie Vrouwen, which has 9 teams, no second tier, no promotion relegation, and it's mostly affiliated with the big teams. Ajax, PSV, Twente. Those men's teams have women's teams that play in the Eredivisie Vrouwen. No Feyenoord as yet. Step it up, Feyenoord.
Yeah, get it together, Feyenoord.
But tellingly, only 6 players on this roster play domestically in the Netherlands. 5 for Ajax, 1 for Twente. You can see how that is going. But all the recognisable names, I want to say everyone we've talked about today plays in like Germany, France, Spain, England. Plays in one of those bigger European professional leagues.
Lyon, Barcelona, and Arsenal, right? For the 3 we just talked about.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mention that Lieke Martens plays for Barcelona. Yeah, Barcelona.
Boo.
So there you go. That is my preview of the Netherlands. I am really excited to watch them play.
As am I. Yeah. As am I. I'm also really excited to do our final group preview.
Okay.
We got some more teams in there.
Yeah, we'll take a little break and then do that.
There will be no breaks.
But it'll come out today, right? Group E will be published today. Group F will also be published.
Let's just do it right now. Let's just roll into it. We don't even need to cut. We'll do Group E and F together.
We will not. So I will say, Taylor Rockwell.
If you called my bluff, I would have panicked.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, if you've enjoyed these Women's World Cup previews, please share them with someone else who you think would appreciate them. You could share the URL totalsoccershow.com/WWC. totalsoccershow.com/WWC. You will find all our previews contained on one page, so you can listen through all of them. Thank you as ever for listening, and we will talk to you again very soon.